Okay guys, there were a few questions on the homework, so I thought before we would check it out, I would maybe do a couple of problems together, so that way you can go back and have a chance to understand it and complete the homework before we check it. Ready? Let's go. Alright, so in this first section, questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're just asking you to translate the shape. So they just want you to move it around that coordinate plane using the descriptions that they give. I'm going to work on number 2 together. So first we want to go 1 unit right and 2 units down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each point individually and I'm going to follow those directions. So if I start at point E, I go 1 unit right, 2 units down. 1, 2. There's my point E prime. Now let's do the same thing with I. 1 unit to the right. There we go. 2 units down. 1, 2. So here's going to be I prime. Point T. 1 unit to the right. 2 units down. 1, 2. It ends up right here. We label that T prime. Now, once you have the points labeled, all you've done is translated the points. But they want you to graph the image, translate the entire image. Therefore, you must connect the dots to create your new prime image. Okay? Not too bad. Over here, they only want you to go 1 unit left if we're looking at number 1. So I'm just moving everything 1 unit left. I'm not counting up or down. So for example, X now becomes 1 unit left. That would be X prime. Continue that for the rest of the points in that shape, and then connect your dots will give you your new prime figure. Okay, let's look at the bottom section. 5 and 6. They want you to graph the image of the figure using the translation. There's 2 ways you can do 5 and 6. One, you could mathematically figure out, oh, they didn't use the letters A. They used U, M, and L. I could mathematically figure out what U prime is going to be in the ordered pairs and graph it. Figure out mathematically what M prime is going to be and graph it. Figure out L prime and graph it. Remember, mathematically, if we were going to figure this out, 5 units up, that is a Y direction, and going up would be plus 5. So if we were mathematically going to find our new prime points, we don't have any directions for the X value. So my X value is going to stay the same. So U prime is still going to be -3 for my X coordinate. But my Y coordinate I have to add 5 to. So -4 plus 5 gives me a +1. So you could do that mathematically to figure out all 3 new prime points. That's one strategy. The other strategy you could use is graph these points first. So let's do that. U would be at -3, -4, -1, 2, 3, down -4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is U. It's not U prime because it's the original point. M would be -1, -1. There is M. And L is going to be -2, -5. -1, 2, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's L. Connect our dots to make our figure. There is the original. Now, once we have the original graphed, we can use the description, our directions, that can count. We can physically count each ordered pair and translate it. I'm going to use red so you can see it's the new figure. So we only want to go 5 units up. Well, if we start with M, 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's M prime. Point U, 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is U prime. L, 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is L prime. Connect our points. There is our new prime figure. And you can see if we wanted to verify that with what we calculated mathematically, u prime, it says mathematically it should be at negative 3, 1, negative 1, 2, 3, positive 1. So it is at the coordinate negative 3, 1. In this problem, number 5 and number 6, I'm not picky about which strategy you use, the mathematical strategy or the graphing strategy. We just need us to translate and to plot and graph the new prime figure. All right, let's look over the back side. This is where we started to have the questions. On 7 through 10, they want you to find the new coordinates, so you're having to do the math. You're having to mathematically find the new coordinates. So they're wanting you to mathematically find what is Q prime, what is D prime, what is V prime, and then lastly, what is J prime. Okay? Now, to mathematically figure that out, we have to look at our descriptors. First of all, 2 units to the left. Because it's going left, remember left and right are x directions. So that's going to be an x direction. And 2 units left means that I am going to be subtracting 2. 1 unit down, up and down is a y direction. And because it's 1 unit down, down is subtracting because I'm going towards the negative. So it's y minus 1. Now that I have the rule, remember this is the rule. This is the mathematical, the algebraic representation. Okay, if I were to write it as a rule, I'd put a comma between it and parentheses on the outside. There's my rule. So I'm going to use that to mathematically calculate our new points. So for Q, I take my x value, x coordinate, minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Now I have to do the y coordinate. Well, what did my y rule tell me to do? It tells me to subtract 1. My y coordinate, minus 1. So my negative 1, minus 1, what does that give us? Negative 2. So Q prime is going to be at negative 2, negative 2. Continuing on for D prime, I still have to use the same rule. So my x coordinate is negative 2, minus 2, because that's what my x rule tells me to do. Negative 2 minus 2 gives me negative 4. Now let's find my y coordinate, my new y value. 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1 gives me a positive 1. There's my D prime coordinates. V prime, my V value is 2 minus 2 gives me 0. 4, now remember, I got to go over here and use the y rule because the 4 is a y coordinate. 4 minus 1 is 3. There's V prime. J prime, the last one, 3 minus 2 gives me 1. There's my x coordinate. My y coordinate, 0 minus 1, using the y rule, is negative 1. And that's how you find your prime coordinates. Mathematically, using the descriptor to figure out what the rule is going to be. That's going to tell you mathematically, are you adding or subtracting? But now look at number 8. On number 8, 2 units down, that is a y direction. What's happening to the y? We're going down. So is that adding or subtracting? Right, that's subtracting 2. But now there says nothing about the x coordinate. There's nothing that says we're doing to the x. So if we're doing nothing to it, it just stays the same. There's our rule. So for example, when you're finding D prime, my x, I don't do anything to it. There was nothing that told me to move the x values. So it is going to stay the same. Now my y coordinates, I do have a rule, y minus 2. So when I find my D, 1 minus 2 gives me negative 1. Repeat that same strategy for finding A prime, S prime, and N prime. Same things for numbers 9 and 10. Okay, so number 11. This is where it started to get tricky. I had a lot of students that would just tell me verbally, 4 units up, 3 units left. 2 units down, 1 unit right, something like that. But if the directions state write the rule, that means I want the algebraic representation. Okay, algebraic representation. Well, in order to get that algebraic representation, I have to know those descriptors. What are we doing? So remember, to write the rule, I'm going to look at a point. I'm going to start with U and U prime. I just picked those two because they're kind of far off to the side. And if you look, this one right here is prime. It has the little prime symbol. So that means I'm starting at the bottom, at my lower figure, and I'm going to the new prime figure. So I have to figure out X directions, what's happening. Y directions, what's happening. Okay? So my X. If I'm starting here, did I go left or right any to move up to get to this new point? It's straight in line. So it's not like I moved over and then went up, or moved over to the right and went up. So my X coordinate stays the same. Nothing happened. But my Y coordinate, you can see we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going up 4. Okay? Once I know this, then it's pretty easy to put it mathematically. I know my X is staying the same, so nothing happens. My Y going up 4. So would that be adding 4 or subtracting 4? Right, adding 4. There is my rule. There is my rule. Now, you may be asking, well, Ms. Marling, we only did 1 point. But remember, what you do to one coordinate, we do to all of them. You could test it out. You could try each other point, and you're going to be following the same rule. Let's try number 12 together. All right, pick a set of ordered pairs. I'm going to pick D because they're kind of out of the way and they're not going to interfere with the rest of the figure. It's a little bit easier for me. The bottom shape is our prime. Has the prime symbol right there. So I know I'm starting at the top and I'm having to move to get down to the bottom. So first, what's happening with our X's? Well, in order to get here, I know I'm having to go over. I'm going over to the right. To get in line, I went over 1, 2, 3. So I went to the right. Oh, I spelled that wrong. It's early this morning. HT. So I'm going to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. That's what's happening to the X directions. Now let's look what's happening to the Y. To the Y, I'm having to go down. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going down 3. So even though you're using this to figure out the directions, that's not the rule. Remember, the rule is the algebraic mathematical representation. So let's put this into a rule. Yes, you have to have parentheses, and you will have to have that comma in between your X and Y coordinates. All right, so what's happening to the X? Right 3. Is that going to be positive 3 or negative 3? Am I adding 3 or subtracting 3? We're moving on the number line to the right, to the positive side. Right, plus 3. Now my Y direction, down 3. Is that going to be plus or minus 3? We're going down towards the negative part of my number line if I had a vertical number line. So that is minus 3. X plus 3, Y minus 3. There is my rule. Okay? I think you have enough information that you can complete out 13 and 14. Remember, we will be checking this on Tuesday when you return to school, And I will also list in the folder some IXL topics if you still need to practice the translations. I'll also list IXL topics if you need to practice dilations as well, if you felt like you were struggling on that quiz yesterday. All right, we'll see you guys on Tuesday.